The Ballad of What Cannot Have Been. September has its own menagerie of airborne critters, city starlings, sparrows, gulls, even helicopters, and our pigeons. Now the modern urban Pegasus, all flying mascots of metropolis. And in September, mares are stirring in their lairs. The beasts of night arise, take flight, begin their predatory strike, and once again, just as before, the demons of the past attack. Year 17 in our Anno Diaboli. I see the dragons swoop. I watch them shoot and blow their flames of rage. The sky is slashed, the heavens fractured, cleft. The void is left and still remains, the world eviscerated and bereft. I try to beat the mares by force, willpower, push them, crush their hearts and all their parts, their being, or my own, myself. I vow once more that they cannot exist. Somehow, some way there has to be, for this to not have happened. September makes a space for things of wing, and other wonders that might swing and glide in their own glorious gray and blue expanse, where we might glimpse them all above from bays of city halls and malls. But then I shake as mares awake and start to fly, make their foray like Pegasus awry. My tremor starts in turns, before my heart returns to hopes that ache, but then will break and burn, just like the shattered towers that fell into hell and carried those who dwelled within. Year 17 in our Anno Diaboli. The sky assailed us. Sniper in the heavens strafed us with projectiles, airplanes, missiles made with people, women, babies, men. And so we learned the very sky betrays us. Air and flying things can mean we die. Just never look. Don't scan above. Don't lift your head. Don't think of blue. Some way there has to be, for this to not have happened. September is a month when people think of flying, ponder wings and angels, birds and flapping, lifting off and touching down. They take to airplanes like a mythic imitation or contagion. But the mares, time vandals, now invade and seize me, send me to the wormhole. Then they steal the air, contaminate and crush my chest like some satanic Pegasus, and I, for one, can't fly and can't respire at all. Year 17 in our Anno Diaboli. The ones inside the towers could not get air and took to flying, but no wings, they tumbled, and their parts were flung asunder. Then new beings stalked like shells with draining life, their faces gray of ceaseless fright or reddened, raw from rains inside their eyes. Our footholds were all gone. Our feet could not touch earth secure. There was no firmament. The structures, bridges, streets might shudder, or the sky might fall. Some way there has to be for this to not have happened. In September daytime, city birds lead choruses of chirping, honks and toots, the streets alive with rumbling, grinds and rubs that tickle, thrill, but also purr and hum in reassuring ready crisis. Sirens pulse and wail like city loon songs, trolling aid and rescue, urban music, arias of hope and succor, even comfort. But the mares of night now come in sun and raid, like Pegasus gone wrong, undone. They start with daytime buzz, mosquitoes of the soul. They swarm with urgent, fiery, shrill crescendos, then trepan me through my skull and suck, collapse me to my horror. Now, year 17 in our Anno Diaboli. The screeching sirens, horns that moaned, inflamed and burned my ears. They churned and roared, they bore and tore my core, alarms that shrieked, percussive drones, like screams unheard, like screams not screamed yet heard. And peace to come was ceased. Serenity was crushed as piercings drilled and filled all space around. I cover up my ears, I try to close them and just amputate the sound. Some way there has to be for this to not have happened. September makes the buildings come alive. The concrete shimmers in its awe. They rise in vertical display. They venerate and point like churches to the heavens. They're true dwellers of the city. But I'm sucked into the past, the happened, and the maybe. Mares, skyriders shoot me down from time that's present, kidnap me. Our trusted Pegasus betrays. I cannot hold on to the now. I'm dragged to then, with now, year 17 in our Anno Diaboli. The towers, city's pride, the steeples, pierced and wounded, dripping viscera, they cracked and swallowed up themselves, and then became mere rocks and detritus. Now, time itself is cleaved, the future shattered, scattered, broken. All the years reset and counted all anew. Some way there has to be for this to not have happened. In September, eager gnomes of industry do scurry, scramble, zig and zag in frenzied dances of production as they snort and pant in fervor or in agitation. But the mares proliferate, now sharp metallic monsters, artifacts unholy, spawned in factories as iron-crafted Pegasus from hell. Year 17 in our Anno Diaboli. And they blew toxin, fumes of fire and dust of fallen structures, pulverized, and gas of burning flesh. They stole our air, they smothered us, they choked us, poisoned us with particles of death. And we could only try to breathe when air contained the smoke, the gas, the dragon's breath. Some way there has to be for this to not have happened. In September, I'm a beaver building dams to hold the pool of pain, contain the tears, the lacrimal monsoon. I try constructing dikes with tiny strings of hope and numbness, but the threads unravel when the mares return to swarm, stampeding in their airborne war dance. Now year 17 in our Anno Diaboli. They say, to send the mares away, eyeball the truth. The truth will trap the mares in time that's past, in history. The truth, with all its tears and fears, just stare it down and mourn. The open wound will close, a scar, but healed. Look at the truth, they say. But they do not say how. I don't know how to say to know it was. It's true. It happened. It transpired, and not turn into stone. Our weeping, can it ever be enough? How can we say that this was real? But I can say that there's some way there has to be for this to not have happened. So then, meet the truth and face it, mourn and grieve and mourn. But then, how can one do this when there's so much loss? But more than loss, the shock, the terror, and the helpless rage. And how to face an evil in the daylight, then carry on and live. Year 17 in our Anno Diaboli. We don't have tears enough to weep for those inside the buildings, and for those inside the airplanes, and for those who came to rescue, and for those with body parts remaining still unknown. How can we say it was, it's true, it happened, and then not melt to formless clay or petrify to rock? Instead, I say let's find the way for this to not have happened. Tell me how we can accept that this transpired. Tell me how we gaze at this when all our veins will surely desiccate. Year 17 in our Anno Diaboli. We don't have tears enough to weep for those who loved them, and for those who came to help, and for their families. How can one say and know that this was real? How can we say this was a fact? Some way there has to be, for this to not have happened. Tell me how to fathom something that cannot be fathomed. How can we look at this when looking means we will be numbed and freeze? Year 17 in our Anno Diaboli. We don't have tears enough to weep for those who saw it all and changed. All changed. The city skyline, sky itself, the air, the ground, the time as time is now, forever changed, all changed, forever. And the love and trust for fellow man now changed. No more presumed, as we have seen intention in the terror, loss, and pain to innocence. And we ourselves are changed forever. How can we look when it will turn our blood and bones to ice? Some way there has to be for this to not have happened. How can we come to face this in our flesh, our essence, as ourselves, when we will fade and wither into phantoms, into shadows? So I ask, and ask again, and no one gives an answer. No one tells us what the answer is. No one tells us. No one has an answer. No one knows the answer. No one knows. No one knows.